Did anyone catch that part of the sentence? I did not. Third time lucky, here we go. Hello again, it's Colin from Pink Elephant and this is Talk Shop, here to analyse the world's leading speakers and identify what do they do well and what can they still improve. This time, it's President Biden's address to the nation that he gave from the Oval Office on July 24th, 2024. Let's get into it.
In this moment, we can see those we disagree with not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. Can we do that? Does character in public life still matter? I believe I know the answer to these questions because I know you, the American people.
Pausing it here. We're a couple of minutes in, I'm going to make 2 points. The first point is about the auto cue slip that we saw there. I have been there more times than I care to admit, where I think I know what the next word is going to be because my brain has filled out the sentence for me, and then the word appears and it's different. So here, Joe Biden is talking about, rather than enemies, we want to see them as fellow Americans. And his brain's done the same thing. He's gone to, well, clearly the word is going to be friends, and then it's different, and he slipped up. He did the right thing, he corrected it, said the right phrase, kept going. I've done that before as well, and there's a really easy solution to this. Read the script over and over and over and over so that when this section comes up, you know that the phrase is fellow Americans rather than what your brain jumped to, which was friends. He may have read the script a few times, needed to have read it more, and we would have avoided that. Second point, this is now the third leader I've seen do this. They've rushed through the opening, and this is completely normal. I see this with speakers all over the world. The opening few moments are faster, they're rushed. We begin to cram words together, we chunk them so that 3 or 4 words sound more like one. And he did it right there when he was talking about, does character in public office still matter? I believe you know the answer to that. And I'm thinking, did he say, I believe I know the answer? Or did he say, I believe you know the answer? Because if it's the latter, it needed to be delivered like that. I believe you know the answer. Because there's the impact. But because he's rushing, whether it's the adrenaline, it's the, oh, I'm live, millions of people are watching this, he's rushed through it and it's lost the impact. So take your time, Joe. Take your time, everyone, in the opening minutes of the speech, because even though your body's nervous energy is kicking in, fight it, keep it nice and slow, and as we'll see, you find your rhythm the longer you go. Let's keep going.
You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term.
Stopping it here, good use of the phrase, I believe. I believe my record, my policies merited a second term. That's a very different sentence to my policies, my track record merited a second term, because then his critics would come back and say, no, they did not. If instead you're caveating strongly held opinions and you start your sentences with I believe, then it's very difficult to challenge because now it's personal. It's a belief rather than stating something factually. So nicely worded here.
Today we have the strongest economy in the world, creating nearly 16 million new jobs, a record. Wages are up. Inflation continues to come down. The racial wealth gap is the lowest it's been in 20 years. We're literally rebuilding our entire nation, urban, suburban, rural, and tribal communities. Manufacturing has come back to America.
Stopping it here because there's a point to be made about overloading an audience with information. What the president is doing here, as is his wont, as is his right, because he is talking about why he's avoiding running for a second term, he's listing all his accolades, all the things that he and his government have done. Great, fine. The problem is, there's so much in here that if you ask an audience at the end to recall all the great things that the Biden administration have done, you may struggle. And so the same goes for you. If you're pitching something, if you're proposing, or even simply reviewing what your team have done over the last quarter, the last year, rather than list the 15 best things you've done, go for 3, because that's much more impactful. And also, your audience are much more likely to remember it. And for the people who really do want the information, all of the things you've done, that's where you can follow up in the written word, because then they can read it, they can reread it, they can look it over again, they can compare it with their own data, and they can do that in their own time. When you're presenting information, people are short of time, give them max 3 points, much more likely to remember it.
Bigger than any ocean, more powerful than any dictator or tyrant. It's the most powerful idea in the history of the world. That idea is that we hold these truths to be self-evident. We're all created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights.
Joe, I did not hear a word of that. Say that again.
We're all created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights.
Did anyone catch that part of the sentence? I did not. Third time lucky, here we go.
We're all created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Life.
Something about inalienable rights. I am going to repeat myself. He needs to take his time. He needs to slow down. I get it. When you speak more slowly than you usually speak, which is what I'm doing at the moment, it can feel a bit odd. It can feel almost robotic at times. It's so important to do though, because it means that a sentence like this, we actually understand what he's saying. And that's maybe the 8th time, by the way, I've listened to that, and I still don't know the point he's attempting to say. I believe it's about being born with inalienable rights. If that is what he's attempting to say, first of all, simplify it, because I'm struggling to figure out the meaning. And second of all, if there is a complicated sentence in whether it's this speech or your speech, say it 10, 11, 12, 15, 20 times over before you get on stage, so that when you do, and when the camera is rolling, you say it, and you say it correctly, because you've said it 20 times previously.
The privilege of my life to serve this nation for over 50 years. Nowhere else on earth could a kid with a stutter, from modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, one day sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States. But here I am.
I'm going to make 2 brief points. Number 1, great example of using personal stories and a little bit of vulnerability / backstory in what is a very serious speech. You can do the same thing. If it's short, if it's succinct, if it serves a purpose, absolutely. Tell us about you, because you're much more than your job title. He's much more than the president. He's Joseph Biden, who grew up with a stutter. So that is absolutely a valid point, as long as it's short and as long as it serves a purpose. The second point, I get that this is all the rhetoric of nowhere else on earth could a kid from Pennsylvania with a stutter from humble beginnings become the president. And part of me is thinking, I could tell you about dozens of political heavyweights who basically started in their version of Scranton, Pennsylvania with humble beginnings. So I understand the rhetoric of only in America. But a little bit of critical thinking tells you, nope, that does happen a lot. Even if, rather than Scranton, it's Kirkcaldy.
And there's simply nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. So let's act together, preserve our democracy. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
It's quite a simple summary. Second half, very good. Presidential at times. Pausing, letting the words that needed to be felt land with impact. The phrasing is nice as well. The way in which this is written, the sentences are very short. If you looked at a transcript, I imagine there would be very few which run into a second line. That's really nicely written, very punchy. Let's contrast that with the first half. Whilst the writing remains the same, what's missing is that presidential-esque delivery. We have words which are incoherent, some sentences which fail to make any sort of sense. and some flubs with the auto cue, saying the wrong word or saying the repeated word a couple of times. If we could bottle the second half of that delivery and put it into the first, overall, you'd have a great speech. And for what it was, overall, it was a good speech. But we could get it to great, taking his time even more than he already is in the latter half, and making sure that to avoid any slips with the auto cue, we read the speech again and again and again and again and again and again. I trust you've enjoyed this edition of Talk Shop as much as I have, and if you want to improve your own presentation skills today, you can do. Visit the Pink Elephant Academy and buy one of our e-learning courses, whether it's on presentations, dealing with the media, writing, even difficult conversations. Use the discount code TALKSHOP and you'll get a chunk of change off that as well. Till next time, smile, and for the love of all that is holy, speak slowly.